Not every Harley-Davidson is a legendary machine. In fact, some models are downright embarrassing, bikes that even the most loyal fans would rather forget. These are the 10 Harley-Davidsons that missed the mark so badly, dealers can't get rid of them fast enough. Stick around for number 1. It's a bike so overhyped, overpriced, and overbuilt that instead of turning heads, it just made jaws clench. Let's dive in. Let's kick this off with number 10, Harley-Davidson's now defunct Street 500 and 750. Bikes that were supposed to lure in a fresh wave of urban riders and beginners. Instead, they ended up sitting under showroom lights like display props no one wanted. When these bikes launched, Harley said all the right things. Lightweight, affordable, city-focused, liquid-cooled, everything a new rider needed, and none of the intimidating bloat of a big touring rig. The 500 featured a 494 cubic centimeter engine. The 750 had 749 cubic centimeters. Both ran on Harley's new Revolution X platform. They even got chosen as the official training bikes for the Harley-Davidson Riding Academy. But then, reality kicked in. The street bikes didn't just look stripped down, they looked cheap. Owners complained about rattling parts, plastic bodywork that felt flimsy, and finishes that didn't hold up. Some dealers reported that side panels would rattle loose during test rides. And the styling? Let's be honest. If you removed the Harley badge, you'd never guess who made it. Traditional Harley riders scoffed at them. Too modern, too soft, no soul. Meanwhile, younger riders turned to more stylish, better-built options, like the Honda Rebel 500, the Yamaha Bolt, or even a used Triumph Bonneville, all of which had stronger design, better build quality, and a more refined ride. The final insult? The Street 500 launched at $7,695, the 750 at $8,499. Prices that might have worked if the bikes had lived up to them. They didn't. Today, dealerships are knocking $2,000 or more off these leftover units. Harley has since discontinued the entire street lineup, but if you walk into a dealership and squint, you'll still see a few gathering dust in the back. Waiting. Forgotten. But that slow fade into irrelevance? It's nothing compared to number 9, the Harley-Davidson Livewire. When Harley announced its first electric motorcycle, the Livewire, the industry took notice. This wasn't some underpowered scooter. It was a technological powerhouse. A permanent magnet electric motor with 105 horsepower. 0 to 60 in 3.0 seconds. Fully adjustable Showa suspension. A digital dash that felt like it belonged in a fighter jet. But here's the catch. Harley fans didn't want any of it. Because while the Livewire looked cool on paper, it never felt like a Harley. No engine rumble, no shifting gears, no roar. Just smooth, silent acceleration that made you feel more like you were gliding on a drone than riding a bike with history and attitude. At launch, it came with a jaw-dropping price tag of $29,799, more than Harley's own fully loaded touring bikes. Even after a massive price cut to $22,000, buyers weren't biting. Not because it wasn't fast, not because it wasn't futuristic, but because it wasn't Harley. And then came the real killer, range. 146 miles in the city sounds decent until you realize highway range dropped to just 70 miles. For riders who spend their weekends chasing the horizon, that wasn't going to cut it. Add in long charging times, even with DC fast charging, and the Livewire quickly became impractical for most real-world use. Reviews called it impressive, but sales flat-lined. In 2024, Livewire revenue dropped 32%. Harley tried spinning it off into its own sub-brand, complete with a redesign and some marketing refresh. But the damage was already done. The stigma stuck. Now, dealers are offering up to $7,000 off just to move units. And if you look closely, you'll see the truth. For all its ambition, the Livewire became one of the most expensive lessons Harley's ever had to learn. But if the Livewire was Harley trying to chase the future, number 8 was them trying to outrun it. The FXDR 114 looked like it was ripped from a sci-fi movie, a drag bike straight out of Mad Max. It was low, loud, and impossible to ignore. Harley said it was built to dominate the street with futuristic styling and straight-line power. And to be fair, it packed a punch. The Milwaukee 8114 engine delivered 119 pound-feet of torque, and it had aluminum body components to keep it lighter than its softail cousins. That massive 240mm rear tire gave it real visual muscle. But here's the problem: no one wanted it. At $18,999, riders expected performance and comfort. What they got was a bike that looked aggressive, but punished anyone who dared ride it for more than 20 minutes. The riding position was stretched out and awkward. Forward controls forced your legs out front. Flat, drag-style handlebars made you hunch. The result? Wrist, back, and neck pain by mile 20. It was great in a straight line, but terrible in corners. That giant rear tire, while sexy, made tight turns feel like a wrestling match. It understeered badly. Parking lots became battle zones. Urban riding felt like trying to steer a missile through a grocery aisle. Even Harley loyalists couldn't defend it. Reviews were mixed. Sales were worse. By the time Harley axed it, dealers were already offloading FXDRs with $4,000 discounts. Today, they're buried deep in showroom corners, high on power, low on purpose. But if the FXDR was a bold swing that missed, number 7 is the awkward shuffle nobody asked for. If there was ever a Harley that got caught between two worlds, it was the Sport Glide. This was supposed to be the best of both: lightweight cruiser and light-duty tourer in one package. A do-it-all machine with the Milwaukee 8107 engine, detachable fairing, and saddlebags you could pop on and off with ease. It sounded great on paper, but once riders got on it, the cracks started showing. For cruiser lovers, it was too bulky. That fairing and those bags gave it the silhouette of a mini tourer, not the stripped-down style of a Fat Bob or Lowrider S. It didn't feel raw or rebellious. It felt polite. For touring fans, it didn't go far enough. The mini fairing offered laughably little wind protection. The saddlebags looked great, but couldn't even hold a full-face helmet. And the suspension wasn't tuned for long-haul comfort, especially two-up. Priced at $19,999, it sat in a weird middle ground. For just a little more, you could step up to a Road King or Street Glide. True touring machines with bigger tanks, better protection, and far more range. And that's exactly what buyers did. Harley discontinued the Sport Glide quietly. No press release, no fanfare, just a model pulled from the lineup and forgotten. Dealers today are offering $3,000 or more off, trying to move inventory that now feels neither here nor there. It was never a bad bike. It just didn't know who it was for. But number 6? This one did know its audience. It just forgot to give them a reason to care. On paper, the Electra Glide Standard was a brilliant idea. Strip away the infotainment, cut the luxuries, give riders the bones of Harley's legendary touring platform at a price that made long-distance riding more accessible. What you're left with is a blacked-out touring rig with the Milwaukee 8107 engine, classic batwing fairing, hard saddlebags, and nothing else. It was Harley's answer to the purists, the riders who say, "I just want to ride." But in reality, most people didn't want just a ride. For $19,999, the Electra Glide Standard wasn't cheap enough to be considered a value buy, and it was too bare-bones to attract real touring customers. The lack of a stereo, touchscreen, nav system, or even Bluetooth made it feel like a throwback, but without the retro charm. It wasn't just minimal, it was too minimal. You'd get more tech in a 10-year-old Street Glide. Riders expecting a blank slate for customization were met with limited wiring options and a platform that required serious upgrades just to match the experience of other bikes in its price bracket. The Electra Glide Standard also lacked Harley's newer safety systems, like cornering ABS, traction control, or RDRS, Reflex Defensive Rider System. So not only were you getting fewer features, but you were also giving up important safety aids, at a time when most touring riders want more, not less. Now dealerships are cutting $3,500+ off MSRP, trying to move bikes that feel like a downgrade in a category that thrives on comfort and convenience. Some riders still swear by it, but for most, it's the one Harley touring bike they actively avoid. And if that was a stumble, number 5 was a full-blown leap into the unknown. This brings us to Harley-Davidson's Moonshot, a no-compromises adventure bike built to shake up a segment long dominated by the likes of BMW's R1250GS and KTM's 1290 Super Adventure. And for a while, it looked like they had a real shot. The Pan America was loaded with features. 150 horsepower from the all-new Revolution, max 1,250 engine, adaptive ride height that lowered the bike when you came to a stop, multiple riding modes, a 6.5-inch touchscreen display, cruise control, and a rugged look that set it apart. But Harley didn't just need to build a good ADV bike. They needed to convince ADV riders to buy it. And that's where things got rough. First, there were the early complaints. Riders reported weird, low-speed handling, a top-heavy feel, and glitches in the suspension system, especially when off-road. The adaptive ride height, while innovative, was sometimes inconsistent. The touchscreen had software hiccups. The bike felt tall and ungainly to shorter riders, even with the tech compensating. Then came the elephant in the room. Harley had no credibility in the ADV space. BMW, KTM, Honda. They've spent decades refining their platforms, building reputations, and cultivating trust among riders who cross continents on two wheels. Harley, meanwhile, had just entered the chat. And then it got worse. In a move that shocked loyalists, Harley announced that production of the Pan America would shift to Thailand. For a brand that's built its identity around American manufacturing, that was a tough pill to swallow. Even with a competitive base price of $17,350, the Pan America couldn't escape the skepticism. Buyers who wanted reliability stuck with the BMW GS. Those who wanted dirt performance bought KTM. Those on a budget? The Yamaha Tenere 700 made more sense. Now, dealerships are offering $2,500 to $3,000 off, hoping someone sees the value in Harley's most tech-forward bike. It had all the right features, just not the right audience. Which brings us to number 4, the Harley-Davidson Switchback, a shapeshifter that never found its final form. This was supposed to be Harley's modular marvel, a bike that could shift from cruiser to tourer and back again. It came with detachable saddlebags and a quick-release windshield. A twin-cam 103 engine pushed 102 pound-feet of torque. It was light, versatile, and ideal for riders who didn't want to commit to a full-dress touring rig. But that promise, it never really landed. For one, it just didn't ride well. The narrow front end made it feel twitchy at speed. The ride quality was stiff. With a short wheelbase and a modest fuel tank, it wasn't nearly as stable or long-legged as Harley's real tourers. And while it was pitched as two bikes in one, it didn't perform especially well in either role. Cruiser fans found it too tall and soft. Touring fans found it too cramped and limited. The windshield offered mediocre wind protection. The bags were small. And the overall silhouette? Awkward. It launched at $16,499. Putting it dangerously close to bikes like the Road King, bikes that delivered far more comfort and presence. Now, despite having been discontinued for years, switchbacks still show up on dealer floors, usually as trade-ins. And guess what? They still don't move. You'll see price tags slashed by $4,000 or more, but buyers pass them over in favor of bikes with stronger identity. The switchback was supposed to be Harley's transformer. Instead, it faded into obscurity. And just when we thought Harley had learned its lesson, along came number 3, the Street Rod. If the Street 500 and 750 were underwhelming, the Street Rod was Harley-Davidson's shot at redemption, a supposed upgrade aimed at silencing critics and winning back younger, performance-focused riders. And from a distance, it almost looked like they'd nailed it. The Street Rod came with sharper geometry, a retuned Revolution X engine delivering more horsepower, inverted front forks, dual disc brakes, drag-style handlebars, and a more aggressive upright stance. On paper, it was the sportiest Harley under 900cc in decades. But as soon as riders threw a leg over it, the reality hit like a pothole at 60 miles an hour. The ergonomics were a disaster. The seat was tall, the pegs were too high, and the cockpit was painfully cramped, especially for riders over 5 feet 10 inches. What Harley marketed as urban agility translated to numb hands, aching knees, and shoulders strained forward like you were riding a bar stool bolted to a fire hydrant. The bike didn't feel nimble, it felt claustrophobic. And then came the build issues. Again, loose panels, misaligned tank covers, cheap-feeling switches. Riders who expected an upgrade from the Bay Street series were met with the same corner cutting in all the wrong places. But perhaps the biggest nail in the coffin was what it had to go up against: the Yamaha MT-07, the Honda CB650R, and the Kawasaki Z650. Three bikes that were not only lighter, faster, and smoother, but also cheaper and better built. The street rod was stuck in an identity crisis. It wasn't raw enough for the Harley crowd, wasn't refined enough for the sport bike crowd, and wasn't priced right for beginners. A supposed street fighter that punched like a scooter and handled like a gym locker. Harley pulled the plug not long after launch, but the leftovers? They're still haunting showrooms. Right now, you can find dealers slashing $2,500 off or more, bringing it down to as low as $6,200. It's the kind of markdown that screams, "Please take this off our hands." But number two? This one didn't just bend the rules, it shattered them. The Harley-Davidson V-Rod was a shock to the system. Born from a bold collaboration with Porsche, this was Harley's moonshot into high-performance territory. Out with the air-cooled V-twins, in with a liquid-cooled Revolution engine that redlined like a sport bike and pulled like a freight train. It had power, 120 horsepower, 84 pound-feet of torque, and a 0 to 60 time of just over 3.5 seconds. An aluminum frame gave it modern stiffness. The fat 240mm rear tire gave it drag strip swagger. The design was low, stretched, muscular, and intimidating. But for many Harley riders, the V-Rod wasn't bold, it was blasphemy. The engine didn't sound like a Harley, it didn't shake, it didn't deliver that thunderous pulse through the frame. Instead of the famous potato-potato rhythm, you got a smooth, high-revving hum. It was fast, but it didn't feel alive in that Harley way. For fans of tradition, the V-Rod wasn't a motorcycle, it was a rejection. It didn't help that it was wildly impractical. The fuel tank held just 3.7 gallons, meaning even casual highway rides required frequent stops. The seat was firm, the foot controls were awkward, and the customization options, normally a Harley selling point, were limited and expensive. Harley tried everything: the Night Rod, the Muscle, the VRS-CDX. Variant after variant rolled out, each more stylized than the last, but none of them stuck. The performance crowd had better options. The Harley loyalists turned their backs, and the V-Rod, it just never found a home. In 2017, Harley quietly pulled the plug, but even now, some dealerships still have leftover V-Rods or low-mileage trade-ins sitting unsold, and they're offering $5,000 off or more just to get rid of them. It's a machine that made sense to engineers, but not to riders. The V-Rod was Harley's biggest leap forward, and it landed flat on its face. And now we've arrived. Number 1, the top of the list, the crown jewel that's turned into a crown anchor. The CVO Street Glide and CVO Road Glide were supposed to represent the pinnacle of Harley-Davidson craftsmanship. They're the factory customs, the flex machines, the bikes with every bolt upgraded, every surface polished, every screen loaded with tech. They feature Harley's biggest and most advanced engine, the Milwaukee 8-121. They've got electronically adjustable suspension, adaptive cornering lights, premium heated seats, massive Rockford Fosgate sound systems, and hand-painted finishes that shimmer in the sunlight. But all of that comes at a price: $50,000. Let that sink in. For 50 grand, you're not getting a Bentley. You're not getting a Tesla. You're getting a motorcycle that functionally offers maybe 15 to 20% more than a Street Glide Special that costs almost half as much. And that's exactly where the problem starts. Most Harley riders don't want a ready-made dream bike. They want to build their own. They want to pick the bars, tune the exhaust, choose the wheels, and create something personal. The CVO skips all that and gives you someone else's idea of custom for double the pricing. And when it comes time to sell, good luck. CVOs plummet in value. While standard Harleys hold their resale well, CVOs can lose up to 30% the moment you roll them off the lot. That's $15,000 evaporated before your first oil change. Dealers are desperate. Some are cutting $6,000, $7,000, even $8,000 off MSRP just to move these showroom anchors. But even with those cuts, buyers are walking. Because in today's economy, no one's lining up to drop 50 grand on a factory custom, especially when they can build a better one in their own garage for far less. These CVOs are Harley's loudest, flashiest, most polished bikes. But right now, they're also the loneliest machines in the showroom. Now you know what they're desperate to get rid of. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.